Hello and welcome to my channel Bobo Buns Sew Vintage Life. I'm Lisa, a vintage inspired seamstress and a dressmaking teacher. Absolutely bonkers passionate, probably borderline obsessed with sewing, but I also have some other sidelines. I love playing with felt, making brooches. I like making toys, bags and home furnishings, but I also love to knit, and I'd say my time is probably more like 70% sewing and 30% knitting, because you want all those knits to go with your lovely vintage inspired outfits. So I know there's quite a few of you that love to knit, and one of my subscribers, Vintage Mrs P, asked if I would talk about vintage knitting. So that's what I'm going to chat with you about today. So I shall see you in a moment. Now, I think, first of all, I want to tell you where my foray into the world of knitting started. Now, I know when I was a little girl, my mum tried to get me knitting, so she taught me to knit, and I thought it was the most god-awful, boring way to spend your time. There was lots of other things I'd rather be doing. So all the jumpers and things that needed to be knitted for my dolls, my mum very kindly knitted for them. I like making the clothes, but I wasn't interested in the knitting. And then we'll spin forward to, I'm trying to think of the year. So we're talking between 2001 and 2002 when my second daughter Millie was born. I got pregnant with Millie when Rosie, my oldest daughter, was 9 months old, so that was quite a surprise, because we knew we wanted another one, but didn't realise it would kind of be like the moment we said we'd like another one, same week. It's quite a funny story with that actually, but for another time perhaps, because we're talking about knitting today. So yeah, I'd got a very small toddler, well, a baby moving into a toddler. She walked by the time she was 1, who didn't like to sleep or rest, so she was very tiring. And when Millie was born, Millie was 11 pounds, so no wonder I was quite exhausted, and I always suffered with anemia during my pregnancies. So my mum, in a bid to make me rest and sit down whenever Rosie had her daytime nap, so that I wasn't thinking, hooray, I've got time for me, I can do whatever I want, because that's kind of off the cards a bit when you've got small children. But rest was the most important, and I wasn't going to have a nap, but I needed to sit still. So mum got me back on the knitting wagon again, and I really loved it. So the first project, I thought I'll do something realistic. So I knitted a blanket for the baby that was to be. And unlike Rosie, I had a really strong feeling she was going to be a girl, because we never got them, tested to find out, or wanted a sneak peek. I liked the surprise, because I didn't mind what kind of human was turning up, as long as they were nice. And I was going to say well behaved, but yeah, that's a bit of a big ask. But I've had a feeling this might be a little boy, so I decided I was going to knit this blanket, and I went more for like greens, blues, creams. And yeah, I'm not for all those gender stereotypes, but I do love pinks and reds together, so I probably would have knitted in those colours. But I went for greens and blues, which are my other favourite colour. So I knitted like a patchworky blanket, you know, of squares, plain coloured squares, and ones with hearts in them, all different colours, some moss stitch, some rib, some garter stitch, you know, stocking stitch, whatever. So yeah, I made up that blanket and sewed it up. No, by no means fantastic, but we still have it. I wanted to show you my early knits, but I cannot find where they are in the house, so I gave up. You know, this massive stuff hidden everywhere around this house. So I made the blanket, and then I started knitting some little cardigans for Rosie. I remember knitting her a pink cardigan with little ducks around the bottom, and I think I literally finished knitting that the day before I gave birth to Millie, so that kind of skidded in. So I really enjoyed knitting for them, because the things were small, so they got done a lot quicker and completed quickly. And then I remember the next knit, I mean, it's totally crazy, you know, 2 small children, you know, a baby and a toddler. And I decided to knit this cardigan for Rosie that was like a tapestry, you know, with butterflies and birds and flowers all over it. So tons of intarsia, because I knew if I just knit plain colour, I get really bored. I'm a lot better about it now, but then I needed a lot of interest to keep me interested. You know, so the stitches changing, the pattern changing, weaving in different wool, that kind of thing. So I did this cardigan, and I think I'd done the back, and I was so proud of it. You know, you've got all these little bits of wool that you've cut off when you've wound in for all the different colours. And then my husband of the time, he said, I think he'd been downstairs with Rosie and I was still napping with the baby, and he came down and he said, I'm really sorry, but Rosie found your wool. This was like the precursor to me learning that when you've got small children, you put everything up on high shelves, including your makeup, because that all got used one day. They looked rather hilarious, but yeah, I had no makeup for a couple of days. So yeah, that was when I still put the knitting on the floor, and Rosie had found it and was obviously enjoying the tactile pleasure of pulling all the butterflies and the birds and the flowers out of the knitting. And I was really tempted to actually just get the scissors and chop the whole thing up, because the Irish temper came into play. Not with her, but I was just like, I was obviously cross with her, but I couldn't take it on her. I wanted to take it out on the knitting. But I was actually good, and when I calmed down, however long later, I got on and I finished that cardigan. And that, like the other little knits, is stored away somewhere. And my mum knitted the girls lots of little jumpers as well. So I carried on knitting for my daughters. And I think, I don't know how long ago, maybe 10 years ago, I started knitting for myself. I just never had the patience to think about knitting something for myself. Now, I can't remember what it was I started on, but I know this cardigan that I'm wearing now, and I've got this little one here, which is a really lovely, I love the colour of this, but I wish I'd done long sleeves, then it would actually get worn more. These two, I think I started, and it took me about 2 years to actually finish them. That was my staying power. And then I had a word with myself and was like, just get on with it and finish them. But my knitting was kind of slow, and I suppose I've got to put a disclaimer in here. I have got so many knitting projects in my head, and my knitting basket, I've got quite a few on the go, because there's so many colours, so many patterns I want to do, and I'm not quick. If I totally focus on a knit, you know, and I suppose I do it almost every night, I can get something knitted in 2 months, but I'm just not a quick knitter. I can't do that knit stitch. My mum does it, you know, you have the wool around there and you can flick the wool over as you go. Well, I have to knit, and then I have the wool around there, and then I pull it round, knit, pull it round. So I'm a lot slower, but apparently mum says my tension is better as a result, where hers is a bit off. So who knows, just do whatever works for you, I guess. But yeah, after these 2 knits, I mean, I can't remember what pattern this was from now, some Rowan magazine, and I didn't really like it at first because it's quite big. I'm, you know, taught myself to be good at fitting with clothes, but I've still got to get my head around it with the knitting. So I'm very, also I've got bits of wool blowing around, it's a bit confusing. Blue dots of fluff. I'm really narrow in my shoulders, so I do need to learn to bring them in and all of those kind of things, and I have to lengthen from here to here. Something else I want to show you, which I forgot about doing that too. So yeah, I've got to learn my sizing. I recently subscribed to Squid School of Knitting, which is absolutely fabulous with the patterns, but she talks about how to size vintage patterns, how to measure yourself accurately. So I've watched it all, but I've just got to apply it in my brain, because it's really useful and really inspiring. I think she's just a beautiful, gorgeous girl, and just gives out so much that's really inspiring. So that's a lovely vintage knitting site, and you know, obviously on Patreon, and she's on Instagram. But when I discovered Amy Apfel, who's Poison Girls, and I know that she's sort of done some modelling for Gertie, and Gertie started knitting quite a few of her patterns. But I think it's before Gertie started knitting I discovered Amy at Poison Girls, and it was just like, wow, you know, because there's all these patterns I've got stored up I wanted to knit, but she really got me back into the knitting. So this jumper here, it's called the Betty and Judy Lodge Sweater, you know, from White Christmas. that's the one that got me back into knitting. And I just used a really cheap Starcraft wool, so it's not a particularly great wool, but I didn't want to spend any money just getting my way back in. And they absolutely sold me on knitting. I think I knitted that just in over a month because I wanted it ready for Christmas, and that was about 2 years ago or something, maybe more, I can't remember. But the American patterns are totally different because they're all knitted in the round from the shoulders down. I mean, maybe they're not all like this, but the ones I'm doing and from Poison Girls are. So they're knitted from the shoulders down, then you pick the fronts and the back up and knit all the way around. And they have a lot of different stitches in, which as a British knitter I'm not familiar with. So where is it? There's this fabulous book that my partner bought me a few years ago. It's getting stuck in all the elastic. I call it my knitting Bible. So it's a Debbie Bliss, The Knitter's Knowledge. Oh, and it's just absolutely, I mean, it's huge, as you can see, it's got loads in here. So when it's left something increase, I can't remember what it's called, left, lifted, increase, or all of that. And there's the wraps and all the things these American patterns use. It's all explained in there. Really, really good pictures that I can understand. Because sometimes when I YouTube knitting techniques, you know, or Google them, I can't understand a lot of the time what they're on about. Different ways of learning, but the pictures, they make sense to me. So I should pop that on the floor. Bang. So yeah, I knitted that, and this Christmas I knitted the traditional colours. You see that one in the red. Fancy a pink version as well. It's just a marvellous, marvellous jumper. And this one I knitted in Drops. It's Drops Merino. A friend of mine said if you want really good quality wool, but you know, that doesn't break the bank, use Drops. And I've used so many of their yarns now. I get them from Wool Warehouse here in the UK. And a lady, Tricia, who I teach online sewing to, who lives in California, he's got very much, you know, same dress sense as me, loves a lot of the same patterns. I know she ordered some wool after I made the Joni boat neck from Poison Girls, and she loved the wools I was suggesting, so she ordered from Wool Warehouse, and they came, you know, pretty pronto. So yeah, they're really, really good. So they're affordable and they're just beautiful, beautiful quality wools. So I used to love using Rowan wools and things, but you could be talking about £70 a jumper upwards, or using the Debbie Bliss, and I just can't afford those. But the Drops makes it, you know, around sort of £25–30 to knit something, so that's doable. Probably not good when you're a butterfly knitting wise like me, and I just want to keep moving on to the next colour in the project because it is more affordable. Show you a couple of others, but I will put some pictures up. I made the Blondie cardigan. I think I did the red one first, this lovely one, and this one is with a merino, and then I think it's like a lace or a mohair. You use them together, stranded together, to get this lovely, lovely soft mohairy kind of cardigan. And it's got a little pearl feature, so it looks like little beads. So I made that in the red, and I've also made myself a cream one. I think I'd rather like a black one, so one day I will do another one. Oh, I've got this cardigan, which is from a Rowan pattern. It's looking so worn now, and I will knit myself another pink one one day. I absolutely love this pattern. I will show you where that's from in a moment, because I'm making a yellow version. Then there's another jumper that I've made from Poison Girls, this one, which is absolutely gorgeous. I think it's called the Night Before Ski, and my I'm really rubbish at, what's it called, brain's gone dead, Fair Isle. I absolutely adore Fair Isle techniques, but I just can't get my tension right. So this is quite spongy, and it pulls in at the arm side here, so I know I've really got to work on improving with my knitting and my tension, but you know, it's enjoyable, isn't it? And then there's another cardigan here, which I thought, this is from an original 50s pattern, and I believe I got this from Bex the Femme, who sells some amazing knitting patterns. So Bex, well, her Etsy site's called Subversive Femme, but Bex is on Instagram, and absolutely love this. This is, again, it's like from a colour called Peacock, as a Drops. Well, and it's double-breasted. I've got these beautiful buttons from the Swagman's Daughter, which I don't think I actually work for Swagman's Daughter. I apologise, even though I do buy a lot of my buttons from her. But these ones match it beautifully. Anyway, when I finished it, I thought I don't like it because it rather drops off my shoulders again, and there's a bit wide here where I'm narrower. And yeah, 'cause for reference, I'm like a 16 around my boobs because of the size of my boobs, but I'm a 12 in my frame. So yeah, I've got to work that one out with the knitting. So I thought I don't really like it. I didn't wear it that much, and now it's probably one of my more lived in knits because I absolutely love it, and it gets loads of comments and I'm really happy with it. So quite bizarre. Now the pink cardigan I showed you, and this is just a handful of things that I keep in my knitting basket, some of the projects. The pink cardigan I showed you is from this book here, this Rowan knitting book, and it's called Regan. I'll try and find the bigger picture for you. They were all the photos in this were taken around Southwold and at the Southwold Boating Lake, which is just down in Suffolk. We used to live not far from there, so we still go and visit, so it's quite funny looking at the knitting patterns around there. But I know a lot of people use Southwold for their photo backdrops, but it's from this pattern, which is absolutely gorgeous. I love the lime green as well. Give me a pop of colour any day. Absolutely love that. So I wanted to, excuse me, I really wanted to knit that pattern again, but I fancy doing something else, and I thought I'd screw my brain up. So I've got this book too. I've got quite a few knitting books, to be absolutely truthful. This one's Vintage Knits, so Post-War Patterns by Sarah Dallas. And I loved this stitch. It's called the diamond stitch. Can you see that in this pattern, in this little jumper here? I wanted to incorporate that pattern in the front panels of that cardigan and the rest in plain, and I really wanted to do it in a yellow. So I've got this Drops Wool. I'll have to look them up and I'll put the references because I can't remember to just tell you off the top of my head what the actual wool is, but it's in this absolutely soft, gorgeous yellow. It's trying to find the right shade of yellow, you know, more of a 40s yellow. It's got a slight washed out, more creamy tone than the bright yellows that we get today. Now, can you see the problem? I knitted the front section, look, made the back arm side the right depth, but the front's far too short. So, and that means that the neckline is going to be too low. So I'm going to have to undo the where I've sewn it at the side with mattress stitch, run back to here and do it all again. I'm not feeling overly inspired about doing that at the moment, so that's just sitting there waiting for me to get thrilled about the thought of that. And then I've got the Honey Bop cardigan, and I started that goodness knows how long. This is from Poison Girls, but this is in here. I'll try and get this one out. And I'd nearly done it. Look here, all it is, and this was some cream wool that I found in the cupboard. I don't know if I have enough to finish it, and I just got the last sleeve to do. So yeah, I pick things up and I get fed up with them. I'm determined. I'm trying to finish that one. I'm just thinking, I'm trying to wade through things and finish them and be good, even though I was a bit naughty and picked this wool up the other day because it's exactly the shade of blue I was after. It's called Seahorse, so I thought I'd try that out, and if I like it, yeah, I'll knit something with it, but yeah, I shouldn't be distracting myself. And then I've got the Victory jumper. Again, I probably started this 2 years ago, and that's from that Sarah Dallas Vintage Knits books, Vintage Knit book. And I saw this on another lovely Instagram sewer, Lisa, and she made one of these colours, and I fancied making one myself. I knitted the sleeves, but I really don't like the original sleeves that come down to there. They just don't suit me. I find them really frumpy on me. You know, when you look at things and you think, oh, that looks just so great on other people, and you put it on yourself and it just isn't you. You've got to be realistic about what suits you. I'm much better with a shorter sleeve, so I'm going to do the sleeves again. So yeah, we're nearly there with that jumper, and that might be finished one day as well. Oh gosh, when I look in my basket, there's two. There's a brown cardigan I've started and a pullover as well. It's just a total nightmare. And then I started this also, and this is the back of a cardigan with cable in, because this is a wool that I bought. It's really lovely, sort of plummy, sort of magenta colour. I bought that and didn't know what to do with it, and then I got on with that knit. So I'm going to try to show you where that comes from. Where are we? Yeah, this is from Susan Crawford's A Stitch in Time, which is an absolutely amazing book. It's just beautiful. And I was in our local charity shop recently in the city, and they had one of these for sale for £20. I mean, it would have been quite tempting to sport it and made some money on eBay, but it was a steal if you're into knitting and you found that. But my magenta is going to become this one day. Who knows when I'll be wearing it, but it's this 1930s cardigan. I definitely have more hopes and aspirations than end results with knitting. I definitely know that. But it's just, oh, it's just so lovely. This was one I did get in the charity shop. Another one that I'd had my eye on for ages. Knit Vintage. There's some beautiful knits in there. Shouldn't keep buying these books, should I? And then I would be good. And then this is my folder where I keep the knitting patterns that I buy online. So I've got all the Poison Girl ones I love. And then I've got lots of original vintage ones. This is the pattern for this beautiful blue cardigan. But I've got all sorts. I'm just going to show you one that I really want to get on with next. I don't know if I've even downloaded her yet. Might not have even downloaded it. There was a beautiful one that is main colour blocked, and then it's sort of got flowers that go up into another colour. So I absolutely love that. Hopefully one day we'll get around to knitting that jumper. I've also got this one that I adore. You can use all sorts of mixed colours. And I've got that little one with the bows that I love. So yeah, so you can see I've got lots and lots of ideas. So I probably need to spend more of my time knitting. I do love to knit. I use it as my let's sit down of an evening, you know, and I find it really hard to just sit and watch TV or a film. I get really bored and fidgety. So I do miss a lot of the action, but I just like to knit. And I'm pretty good. If it's a standard knit, then I can just knit, you know, and watch. I find it really hard to knit in company. I tried going to a knitting group once. My friend had a beautiful knitting shop near where I used to live in the countryside, and I went to her knit and natter evening group, and I could not knit and be sociable. So I just got on with being sociable and realised that for me knitting is a solitary pursuit. Other than my youngest daughter, who during lockdown my mum also taught to knit, and she's now absolutely hooked on it, so she's knitting too. So we do like to knit together now and again. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to tell you about knitting was, yeah, I knitted this little brooch, the little flowers. I can't remember what book I got this from, and the little moss stitch bow at the top. So I got the flowers from somewhere, and then the bow I did. Made this into a little brooch, so I absolutely love this. It makes me very happy wearing that. And then I've knitted, you know, the Miss Marple scarves, and they're great for gifts for people, and I can actually stick to getting those finished. They're nice and quick, so I've got a few for myself, and I've knit a few for my mum and other friends, so they're great gifts. So yeah, I absolutely love knitting, but I realise I've got to work on the sizing and my tension, and maybe speeding up a bit more. The other lady that I'd like to mention in terms of vintage knitting, who is an absolute wow, she is a genius with the wool, is Amanda, who is Betty Sparkles Vintage Knitwear. And Amanda also is a dressmaker, so she's got her dressmaking Instagram as well as her knitwear, which is her main business. She's made jumpers for Dita Von Teese of all people, might even made a couple, you know, so she takes commissions from all sorts of wonderful people. I can't believe the speed at which she knits. There's a lot of reason why her knitting has become her business, because she was a professor of history, so yes, she had a very interesting career. Now she has a wonderful business knitting the most amazing designs. So if you want, you know, some real eye candy for knitting, I suggest you go over to Amanda's page. Well, that's me done. I'm just looking at the pile of things I put around me to talk about for knitting, but as you can see, I have completed some things, but it's a slow old process. So I'd love to know what you enjoy knitting, and you know, if you have any hurdles to overcome as I do with the knitting, you know, and what you think about it. Do you prefer knitting or sewing, or are they both equally the same? Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the little foray into yarny chat. Now, if you really enjoy what I chat about on here, and you know, you want to follow along, get notifications, then please subscribe. Makes me very happy to see that you're joining me here. And like or comment, and maybe I will see you next time. Thanks very much, and see you soon.